weight's coming from through like reverse engineering almost, yeah? So you don't try to see the tree, you look at the fruit, and the fruit will point to the tree. So in recovery, we arrive at self has defeated us by looking at its manifestations. We don't arrive there by looking at self, because there isn't one, yeah? But we look at manifestations that seem to be coming from this idea of self, and then by seeing them, we realize there's a lesson there, all right? So I've been defeated by whatever that is, by the manifestations, like resentments, and constant anxiety, and all that stuff, yeah? So I didn't get there from self, and then I got there from the manifestations, and then that way. So it's more like reverse engineering. So when you get relief, then you know why you weren't having relief. Yeah? While you're not in relief, to think you know why is another part of the problem, in my view. A lot of people are very educated why they're screwed, but they're still screwed. It doesn't mean, there's no value there to me. Yeah? So the value is relief. Yes, and in that relief, you'll see why the relief didn't seem to be available. And that's how, in my view, that's how understanding and knowledge is distributed. It's not self-knowledge, it's knowledge of self. Yeah? So self-knowledge, there's a warning. Self-knowledge will avail you nothing in recovery. What? What the hell? That doesn't seem to jive with my direction. My direction was to understand and know a lot of things, and so that I maybe could stay away from certain things and then, you know, saddle up to other things. And everyone seems to go from that starting point, all right? Self is going to grow in understanding and knowledge and da-da-da. But AA throws a very strange statement in. It says, self-knowledge avails you nothing. Wait a minute, so it's denying the whole system in a way, yeah? But knowledge of self is valuable. So when you have knowledge of self, usually by seeing it through its manifestations, yeah, that knowledge is valuable because it brings forth a relief from self, yeah. So now you know the problem from the solution, yeah. It's different. To try to constantly know the solution from the problem is part of the problem, really. I know people who go out and they know exactly why they went out, but they still went out. The knowledge didn't avail them anything, yeah? And then when I talk to them, I don't want to go there because I tell them, your observation of going out is part of the going out, yeah? You don't see it. You think, oh, I went out and now there's a clear observation of it. The observation is part of the going out. And I'm not going to participate with that anymore because it seems to be innate. It's reinforcing the problem. So I don't talk to them. I say, I don't want to talk to you about alcoholism. Just freaking take actions and do that. I don't want to talk about it because it's part of the problem. Yeah? Yeah. So this goes against the logic that we assume to be logical. It does. And then non-duality goes way before that, really, where it sees the insanity, because you don't need to study, if you see the basis of something is insane, to constantly going over the particulars of the insanity on and on isn't serving. It's not serving. Yeah? So like, let's say you're involved with someone who's crazy, and then every time they're crazy, it's like a surprise to you, as if you expected them to be something other than they're not. Sort of like the story about the snake biting the person who saves it, yeah? And then the person who saves it goes, why did you bite me? I've been so nice to you. And he says, hey, I'm a snake. So you recognize the nature of things, and then you're not surprised by the nature of things. Yeah? You're not surprised. Relying on something that comes and goes is going to be disappointing sooner or later, in a way, unless you're clear about its nature. If you think something that came is never going to go, you may be surprised when it leaves. Yeah? But if you know, if you have a basic modicum of understanding that that which comes goes, yeah, that which is temporal isn't reliable. Doesn't mean it's bad or anything, it's just not reliable. So you need to find something here that's not here to be found. It's where we can bring it in here, we can't find it here. Yeah? So we try to find connection with people, but it's predicated on the belief that we're separate. So the wanting to get connection reinforces the problem in a way. Yeah? So you're trying to get connection because you feel you're separate. We're questioning, are you separate? If you're not separate, yes? If you're not separate, then then the drive to connect it takes a different view. You're not like, I gotta get there. It's sort of like, oh yeah, pull in, connect a little, pull out, whatever, because you are connected to that which you are hoping to get connected through, yeah, with other people and shit like that. You're connected already, yes? So a lot of what we're looking for here can come from us. Yeah, it's not found, like Jesus says, you're in this world, but you're not of this world. So the ofness isn't going to be found in the world. In the commerce and the shopping malls of the world, you're probably not going to find what you're of. Yeah, but what you're of can express in the in. Yeah, that's the beautiful thing. So the sense of connection can be expressed here. Maybe with a person, maybe with an animal, maybe with this and that, instead of look for through a person and animal. You see? It's a different feeling. So I'm not looking to connect, I'm looking to express connection. Much different. Looking to connect is like you're an addict. There's something you don't have that you gotta get. Yeah? So it produces an addictive certain drive, just like the addict's drive to get cocaine could be seen as that person's drive to get a date. Yeah, it's the same drive. It's the same. Yeah. So this is about what you're looking for is what's looking. Yeah. So what you're looking for is of what you are. Yeah. It's not in what you're not. It's of what you are. And so now that which you are hoping to seek and find, you'll have the ability to express. Yes, it's so beautiful, really. It's just, there's so many ruffled little feathers of this little beast, of the action figure. And it's trying to unruffle is another ruffling of it. So they can chill out, yes? They can chill out, yeah. And now things are put to rest. Yeah, you're not looking for what can't be found. Yeah, you're not using yourself to find yourself. You're not in the act of projecting on someone. Yeah, that which you need to be, which needs to be found here. Yes, it's just simple. It's just simple. It's like in Zen they would call it, blue will appear as blue, red will appear as red. Very clear. Yeah, very clear. So you'll see that. What's the disappointment in this world? And it's not a disappointment unless you expect it to be different, which is that it comes and goes. Yeah? And this, the wanting to control and manage it and stabilize it is impossible because, like Jesus says, you built your house on sand. It doesn't matter. The firmness of the foundation, what it's resting on, is sand. The sand is going to shift, and that solidly built house is going to shift. Because it's not about the house. It's about what you're resting on and relying on. So here we're relying on self, yeah? And we're trying to get girded the loins and get defenses and how to protect my fragile heart and shit like that. But we're on a false little fucking foundation. The self is made up. The idea of being a solid, long-lasting, independent thing is not true. Yeah. Even if you look at this place is true, you were a baby and there was none of that there. The idea of you hadn't come up yet, really. You were a baby, you were living, you were being called by your parents and everyone else the name you've been called ever since, yeah? But it was obvious there was nobody, there was no one there. There was a lot of there, but there was no one there, yeah? There was no Paul. Paul was like a name given to something, yeah? And then the mental state rallies around that name and then lives a life trying to reinforce it and verify it and authenticate it and make it relevant, yeah? And so this feeling of living drops, and then you get an interpretation back about life, yeah? So now instead of life's happening, it's life's happening to me, yeah? And now the me becomes the center point, yeah? Not consciousness, me, yeah? The me is unconscious. There's a lot of consciousness of me, but the me is unconscious, yeah? Hey, honey, how are you? This is an advanced class, so you're right where you're supposed to be. Yes. The College of Non-Duality, we're going to be closed this week by
There's
the
no time in
government, so get in your tuitions now. We'll have our certification of awakening. We'll have to have it in an undisclosed location in the event. Or did it get raided by the police? Once we did a talk in Philly, and someone had sent me this certificate of awakening on the internet, so I copied some of them, and I went to this group, and we had the gong, and I called people up, and I gave a certificate of awakening authorized by the committee to authorize awakening. It only lasts a year, but it was great. Had little ladies put around. I should do that again, but it's bogus, you know. So those kind of colleges close down fast. This is about getting nothing, giving nothing. Just look at your own devices, and maybe you'll see they're not your own devices. Instead of bitching about why the devices aren't working or this and that, but just look at them, see if they're yours or not. And if you see a lot of people have the same devices, how can they be yours? You know what I mean? The idea that this part, this square, this lawn is a different lawn than the neighbor's is all made up. Yeah. Do you think the lawn knows it stops being Joe's here and then starts being Bill's there? It may look different by Joe and Bill's activity, but the lawn is the lawn. The ground's the ground, yeah. We put these little things all around. Yeah. So if it's not working for you, that's one of the greatest values of this place. It shows you it's failed, so you stop relying on it. Yeah. And then you finally, by seeing what's not reliable, you'll find what's reliable. Instead of using what's not reliable to look for reliable, yeah, you find that thing that's looking for reliability is not reliable. So you lose interest and faith in that, and then you find faith in something that works. Yeah, and then you put it to the test for years in this experiment, and I have to admit I've traveled lighter as Paul more than I'd ever traveled lighter as Paul. Yeah. Now, I wasn't traveling lighter as Paul when there was a deep commitment to being that, and now that deep commitment has been sort of weakened. I feel like Paul does a whole lot better when it's not Paul. It's Paul to everyone else, but hopefully it's not Paul to Paul. Everyone else will get a better edition of Paul when it's not Paul there. Paul will be a lot nicer Paul to everyone it meets. Now, you would think, wow, that would be the goal I'd like to acquire, and then a lot of people do, and they name it in a lot of ways, and then a lot of spirituality is warning how that's not going to work. Like that self's not going to get out of self, or you can't use the Buddha to seek the Buddha. So that yearning to be the bigger, better Paul just makes a bigger Paul. Yeah, and really, the Paul's big enough as it is. It would probably do a lot better being downsized. It doesn't need any more addition and attention and interest. It's got plenty, and look what it's done, And then you really see along the way that your own interest and attention has been the biggest deterrent, really. I came to that conclusion in the addictive life, where I look at people at a meeting and I go, you know, I could turn my life over to everyone, not everyone in this room, but most people, and they would do a better job with it than I ever did, because they don't have the vested interest in it. Yeah? They see clearly what would be good for Paul and not, where Paul doesn't see clearly at all. Yeah? So I saw, and obviously there was an assumption that, yeah, my interest and attention in me should catapult me into a better, bigger condition, you know? It just made sense. I believed it. That if I got on the thing and I set a goal, I will arrive there. So let's gather the interest and attention and, you know, carve like a little arrowhead and put it in there and fucking go. Yeah, and I'll hit my mark, and then the mark would mean quite a lot, which it didn't mean anyway, but of course. So I found that not to be true, which I found most stuff that I was taking to be true not to be true, as this, yeah. So it was more of a loss of interest in Paul, which means the loss of interest in Paul as enlightened, the loss of interest in Paul as, just take all the places Paul was picturing himself to be, let's say geographical, just as an example. Hawaii, you lose interest in the pictures of Paul in Hawaii, you lose interest in the pictures of Paul enlightened, you lose interest in those pictures, and then you gain interest in what? Find out, you know, maybe here, maybe now. Maybe you don't like go to a seminar of how to hold the space for people, you realize that's all we do here is hold the space, yeah? And we're either holding the space for Paul, or we're holding the space, basically. Yeah? So either Paul takes up the whole space that's being held, or there's just the space. Yeah? And Paul flits through like everything else. The idea of Paul arises, departs, all day. Arises, departs, tries to stay a little longer, departs, departs, yes? Yet the space doesn't go anywhere. So maybe it's not holding the space, you are the space that things are held in, let's say. What? Oh yeah, maybe you're that. Yeah. Now, the stubbornness is the sense of being you wanting to be that. So Paul wants to be that space. Well, good luck. Yeah. You can't be that space as Paul. Because you are that space that Paul wants to be. So just take the Paul's drive to want to be the space, you may find out you are the space. Yeah. Yeah, and so now you would think you would rest there because the head has given you, well, you know, once you get to that being that space, I'll be you know, amenable to your drives. I'll be with you all the way. But it isn't that way. It has its own agenda. It's here to garner light, you know. It's looking for surfaces to reflect itself. It's like a mobile Narcissus pond. That's the importance. It's just moving, you know, backwards, forwards. It's a pond, you know, of reflection. So the selfie just wants to get its reflection. Being space doesn't bring much reflection. Becoming space, fucking, that brings a lot of reflection, yeah? If you have a sense of nobility of becoming space, that's going to provide a lot of surface of reflection for what? For Paul, yeah? That which you're not. So you realize very quickly that it has no interest in being. It has a lot of interest in becoming, yeah? It will sign up to become something for years. Now, if it gets a smell that it's close to being it, it's going to probably distract itself, yeah? I used to notice you'd sit for 4 hours, and then you start going into an interesting space, and then you'd be up. You didn't mind the battle for 4 hours, but once you hit peace, oh, I got to do the laundry or something. And so after a while, the sameness of the repetition gave you a hint. Hey, this has no interest in being at peace. It likes to become peaceful. Yeah. And then, but see, if you're trying to become peaceful, which is agitation, like there's a great Zen statement in Faith Mind, hey bro, hey sis, you can't use activity to produce stillness. That would be activity. It's just a little bit of a, yeah, a little, you can't get around it. You can't get over it because you're the little thing that makes it, you see? It's not, all right, so how do I do something to stay out of being the activity that's producing stillness and being activity? You can't. You're the activity they're talking about. So that activity can't become a super cool, chilled out, relaxed activity, you know, to produce stillness. It would still be activity. Yeah? So this is agitation. There isn't you. There isn't a solid you. So there's youing, which is an activity, yeah? So selfing is an activity that wants to produce stillness, but that would just be more activity. That's, yeah? I mean, these are basic tea leaves. You can read. If you have the eyes to see and ears to hear, read some of the books, and you'll see these statements. They can seem to be cryptic, but they're very, very alike, said in different ways. Like Ramana says the same thing in like 8 or 9 different ways. It says the same thing, exactly the same feeling. Yeah? That there's a non-existent thing that's taken to be existing and is looking for salvation for itself. Yeah? And see, this is where I saw the failedness, because if you talk to the system itself about its failedness, it doesn't get it. It just will pull back and try it again. Yeah? It will try to get out of self as self, and it will just change vehicles. It says, oh, it's the fucking Toyota, so let's get into Maserati. You know, it just doesn't, it's not getting out of itself. Doesn't matter what formulation it uses, it's in the equation. That's what's sinking the equation is you. We can't seem to get away from it. And it's the most influential thing in any situation. It's us. Yeah, we're giving everything all the meaning it has. Yeah, we're the observation that distorts the observed. This is way before being Bill and Paul. Yeah, it's what we are as an activity here. We're the dreaming of this event. Yeah, it's not an event. It's eventful dreaming, so to speak. It's dreaming. Yeah. So we are that. We're not the dreamt. Yet the dreamt, hearing about the dreaming, will claim to be the dreaming. Yeah. This is why it doesn't work. See, spirituality, if this obscuring agent wasn't there, you could just say, hey, you're a lion, you know, from a lion to a lion, that how hard would the communication be? Hey, you're a lion. And maybe the next day it would come from that lion, you're a lion. Yeah, it would be direct. Yeah, I mean, it would be, that's it. You're a lion, you're a lion. Yeah? And why is it so difficult for that statement to land if you're a lion? Now, I could see difficulty if you're like an armadillo or a fucking sheep or something. Then the armadillo, because of its armadillo-ness, it would be like, wow, I'm a lion? I don't know, you know. But the cars aren't stopping when I cross the road. I would think they would if it was a lion, so it has its armadillo-ness would, you know, make it very difficult to get. But we're saying you're a lion. Yeah. So there's the description of lion to the lion. Well, how can it not get through? I mean, what's going on to obscure it? It's the lion. Yeah. The lion is identified as something else. And it's the something else that scrambles the message, really. The something else hears the message, you're a lion, but doesn't allow it to get to the lion. It claims to be the hearer of the message, so it scrambles it. So you've got to be tricky how you're a lion, you know, you're a lion, you're a lion, show pictures, illustrations, whatever. It still doesn't get through, you know, because the obscuring is, oh, I'm a lion, like the armadillo's catching every bit of information. So now we got to go, hey, are you an armadillo? Now that's much better. Yeah? Are you an armadillo? So now we switch the game because we've seen that game doesn't work. We're not going to keep talking to what you're not about what it is. It just doesn't go anywhere. So let's talk to what you are about what you're not. So let's hopefully throw a curve that the armadillo has been shown not to be able to hit. So then the catch is made of the lion gets it. You're not a lion, you're not an armadillo. So now the lion hears it in the only way it can hear it. It can hear that it's a lion, yeah? Because the armadillo captures it. So we're not gonna try to get, all right, you're a lion, I'm a lion. We're gonna go, you're not an armadillo. And then with the hopes of, all right, not only that, we're gonna describe what it's like to, quote unquote, be an armadillo. And let's say if you identify, yeah, I feel like an armadillo, I move around like an armadillo. And then their logic would be, therefore I am an armadillo, but we flip the logic. Therefore I'm not an armadillo. See? See, so the logic doesn't lead. So I learned, this is armadillo, 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 and it goes, therefore I am an armadillo. No, it goes, therefore I'm not an armadillo, because whatever can be seen can't be perceiving. Yeah? Yes? So the armadillo isn't what I am. So now I've learned what I'm not as what? As the lion. So now it goes to another talk and it hears, hey, you're a lion, and now in a way the lion hears it. Yeah? Usually a very short talk for them, the lion. But the lion hangs out because it likes the pride, it likes to be with other lions, talking about fucking armadillos. Yeah? Just to keep itself reminded it's not an armadillo. Now an armadillo would love to go to an armadillo meeting to hear about itself. But see, this is the surprise. You're not an armadillo. I love the word. I keep saying it today. Armadillo, armadillo, armadillo. Yeah, you're not an armadillo. So the armadillo, in a way, will get very bummed out when it's hearing about itself, but it's not doing what it thought hearing about itself would do. Because something else is hearing it, and it's the lion. So now the lion has arrived at where it already is, not by going, I'm a lion, I'm a lion, I'm a lion all day, casting itself as an armadillo, doing that. It sees I'm not an armadillo. Beautiful. Now it's established as a lion. And after a while, you realize, one of the first things that drops off, well, you know, I seem so much like an armadillo. I must have been an armadillo for a few years. You know, at least that time I was an armadillo. No, it seemed through, you were never an armadillo. You never were. Also, you're never gonna be, and you're not one now. So it's a beautiful, completely clearing of the whole field. You were not an armadillo, you will not be an armadillo, and you're not an armadillo now. It's beautiful, yeah? Beautiful. First, but this way you hit it, I'm not an armadillo now, and then it tells you you never were and you never will be an armadillo. So no matter how much it looks like an armadillo, you have something now as a counterpoint. Yeah? A clear recognition, then maybe it wasn't for long, but all it was is for enough. Yeah? A clear recognition that you've never been an armadillo. So no matter how many suits the armadillo puts on or says how close the armadillo was or far away from something, you realize you're not an armadillo. Simple as that. So now you have the eyes to see what you're not. You don't have the eyes to see what you are. It can't be seen. You are it. Yeah? Something that you are cannot be seen by something that you are. It's impossible. It doesn't work that way. Yeah? So you see what you're not. I'm not an armadillo. And so the armadillo walks on its legs, on its tail. I'm still not an armadillo. The armadillo says, I really fucked that thing up last night. It's fucked up, yes, and I'm not an armadillo. You know what I mean? I got to go to court for armadillos. You go to court, but I'm still not an armadillo. Everyone in my family sees me as an armadillo, still does not make me an armadillo. Yeah? I'm just not an armadillo. Let's have that as a new basis, okay? And then as you're entertaining that, you'll be able to see the armadillo because it's an activity that's being implied and insinuated. Yeah? It has its little photo album called Memory. It likes you to go and look at it all day. There you were as an armadillo. Go to the post office, see the pictures of you being a felon as an armadillo. Oh, yeah, I was an armadillo on the run. And no, you're not an armadillo. Yeah? You're playing one here, but you're not an armadillo. So now you have a nice basis because it's true, really. Yeah? See, this thing makes up a lot of stuff. So it's usually making false evidence to appear real. Can you imagine if it was confronted with real evidence, what it would do with it? It could stabilize. It could become a new basis for your life. It really could. Because it's difficult to keep making up false evidence appearing real. It's a lot of work. But if something was true, and you put that ability on it, ammo, that could be solid for us. Yes? Yes. So now, the rest of your armadillo life in this armadillo world, with armadillo authorities and everything else, you may travel lighter as an armadillo without finding any skillful method to do it because you see you're not it. Yeah? It takes a little bit of all that attention and interest because it's way too much interest and attention on an armadillo. It extracts that interest and attention and maybe enriches the armadillo life, and the armadillo's little logic can't say I did it because it can't reach with its little armadillo paw to claim it. It just seems so obvious it had nothing to do with how things are going, and it just keeps allowing. Yeah, that's all this can do is allow. Instead of trying to make something or unmake it, it just sort of leans in another direction and lets the armadillo life go on. Yes? Enjoying the armadillo things. Yet, I'm not an armadillo. It's not like I'm not an armadillo. It's just a fact. I'm not an armadillo. You can sit here all day and try to convince me I'm not buying. Why? Because I had one moment of completely clear revelation that can't be unprovoked by 40 years of fucking advertising. Can't. It's just like, whoop. You saw it. It was so authentically so. It's never been tarnished or blemished by anything that's appeared in front of it. So now at least you've got the horse in front of the cart. And it's going to be better for the armadillo, really. Because the armadillo's got way too much interest and attention. See, armadillo, you know, if you ever see it, it doesn't have a giant spectrum of awareness in a very short little world. And it probably suits it. It wouldn't want to know that there's semis running. Yeah? Yeah. So yeah, it may be better that the armadillo, based on its limitations, maybe it shouldn't have a giant fucking kaleidoscopic view. It maybe ruined its whole life as an armadillo. Yeah. Maybe it should be a little bit, so it doesn't need to be the center of the universe, really. It doesn't need to be that which is thought about all day. Yeah, and it would do probably a lot better as itself by a realization that it's not itself. Yeah, so the action figure needs a little, the self-centeredness has gotten too myopic, really. The self-centeredness is a failed system, and the more it gets focused, the worse it is, in a way. So recognizing it's a failed system, and the bottom line of its failedness, it's constantly trying to get out of itself as itself. It doesn't get it. It doesn't realize you can't transcend an imaginary place. It doesn't get that. I shot so much coke based on the idea I could get out of here. I really did. And it was false. I can't get out of an imaginary place. So you're not going to fucking convince it otherwise. It's like its source code, which is going to keep trying to get out of self, right? As self. It's going to use the light to seek the light. It's going to use mind to seek mind. It's going to use the Buddha to seek the Buddha. You're not going to convince it otherwise. So it's pointless to talk to it. Yeah, it is. It's just unbelievable. I've seen it tons of meetings, tons of it. Something is not working. So let's look at it in another view. Let's just have an open mind, let's say, that maybe, just maybe, you are something that's not configured as a body, not 6'2", not 80-year breath of life, not this and that. Yeah, maybe you're not that. Yeah, and then just see what fills in when that little space isn't taken by all this dead space of being Paul. Yeah, maybe a little information will. It's sort of like a river that hasn't been polluted. You know, a little bit of river, a little bit of clear water will come through the system, and then you'll be able to see the pollution of the other tributaries by the clearness of this one. Yeah? If all of them are polluted, you think that's the norm in a way. But now you have an example of clarity or clearness, and then you can go, wait a minute, you know? Yeah. These are all failed systems. They just end up into the same pond of fucking Narcissus. Yeah? So let's stop, let the rude awakening take hold, gets reconfigured. Now you're out living, seemingly as an armadillo amongst armadillos, but you can be of use to others. You're available to love and, you know, connection in this world and all that, and you don't get gypped anymore. Yeah, you've seen the failedness of the system that was being relied on, and now there's been a withdrawing of the interest and attention of it. Let the system fail. It's a great teaching, really. Like the Course in Miracles says, what can a failed system show you? Well, my answer to that is that it's failed. Yeah. So by seeing it's failed, maybe something can lift off of it. Attention and interest can go somewhere that's successfully directed. Yeah. And that you'll, along the way, you'll entertain the word serenity, no peace, these things that seem to be possible fruit in the way where you're walking will start appearing. Yeah, you're onto something. Yeah. So, I'm going to call this the Armadillo talk. But you see it, at least. I don't care if you get it, because you can't. I care if you see it. I'm just attempting, I want you to see the invitation, because that's the job. Yeah. Now, where you go with it is none of my business. But I do want to try to capture how it is, you know, to the best of this ability, so that you leave here like with a cod, you know, no mackerel, no salmon, no changing the fin system, just cod. And then cook it, sushi it, whatever, but that's, you got the cod. We're a cod salesman, as we used to be. No, we don't have a lot of fish, we have one fish. We're serving it all the time. You're meant to do what you want with it, but I just want you to get cod. Yeah. So yeah, any questions today? I figure by the donations today, I should be able to get a coffee, a latte. That's good.
Call Dorado.
Dorado. Look at what it left there.
Dorado.
It's left.
He's the one who gets the message the most.
Yeah, yeah. Look at him. He takes, look, he's plastic, paper. He's eating.
Plastic.
Dorado could be a perfect garbage man. Just send him. Just make, you know, empty your things, and by an hour later when you wake up, they'd all be gone.
It'll be on the living room floor.
Just eating it all. So hey, yeah, that's it. No questions, eh? No. Applied to recovery. Recovery presents it in a way of looking at the failedness of things, yeah, with the hopes that you'll be open to another possibility. Because it tends to be the way, in a sense, begrudgingly things can change here, is when the system is so blatantly failed thee that maybe there's another possibilities available. Yeah. So without that basic foundation of realizing you're fucked, it's difficult to build anything on, because you can easily look at like it's a self-help program, but it isn't. There's a grace involved that's not of this place, it's of what we are, but will really blow a nice wind and a constant wind if you set the sails correctly in this place. Yeah. The wind isn't coming from this place, but it's blowing in this place through us. So just set your sail by the principles of a daily life based on sound principles, staying sober, yeah, absence is the key, and then just see where that boat goes after a while. And you'll be happy for the fucking journey. So AA is just to admit that what you're relying on has failed. The thought system is a failed system. It's not going to get out of itself as itself, which it's trying to do all day, really. It can't. It's just, it doesn't learn. It doesn't learn. It doesn't have the capacity to learn. I've seen it. Yeah? It has to fail miserably for something to change. And it's not usually in the system, it's outside the system. Something you get connected to that intuitive thought, that wisdom, not a logic that's not spawned by the mental state, yeah? Because you can transmit a lot of shit. Like, it's the radio station isn't limited to the one rap music it's playing. If you change the dial, it would play anything, yeah? The radio can play anything. It doesn't just play rap or hip hop, it's just anything. So the radio isn't limited, yeah? It's just the system says it's you. So the system is saying it's the radio. And therefore you think that's the only radio station you can pick up, yeah? Yeah. It's not the radio. You can see the failedness of it, and something else will come through. Something else will direct and lead you. And they'll write a different playlist than the playlist this fucking thing does. Yeah. So, yeah. So, and I'm here to tell you from my own observation, as this old armadillo, man, as an armadillo, it gets better and better with no effort from the armadillo runs. Yeah? Yeah? I don't have to show up as an armadillo, I'm appearing to be one. Yeah? And it's just, life as an armadillo is life as an armadillo has been way beyond what I thought as an armadillo. So, yeah. All right, so that's it. And listen, let's pass the bat.